There are words that might sound reasonable at first, even caring, but beneath those phrases lies something darker, hidden intentions that could slowly strip away your peace, your confidence, and your connection to yourself. Carl Jung, the brilliant Swiss psychologist, taught us about the shadow, that unconscious part of ourselves where we bury what we refuse to face. And when a man speaks from his unhealed shadow, you're not just hearing words, you're hearing a warning. In this video, I'll reveal 5 phrases that, when you hear them, should immediately alert you to danger. Because this isn't about surface-level relationship advice. This is about recognizing when someone's unconscious darkness is about to become your burden. As Marcus Aurelius once said, how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. Sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is simply walking away before the damage begins. Each of these phrases carries a psychological weight that goes far deeper than the words themselves. Ignoring them could trap you in a relationship where you slowly lose yourself, piece by piece, while trying to heal someone who refuses to heal. And believe me, no woman who values her inner peace and personal growth should ever have to carry someone else's unintegrated shadow. Stay with me, because I'll not only show you how to recognize these warning signs, but how to respond with strength and clarity without losing your center. Let's start. You have to accept me as I am. At first glance, this might sound like authentic self-expression, maybe even vulnerability. But listen carefully. When a man uses this phrase to excuse harmful behavior, you're witnessing one of the most dangerous patterns in relationships. Carl Jung made it clear that true growth begins when we stop making excuses and start facing our shadows. But when someone hides behind, "That's just how I am," to avoid change, you're not dealing with authenticity. You're dealing with someone who has made peace with their dysfunction. This phrase usually appears after you've noticed troubling patterns, emotional unavailability, disrespect, or manipulative behavior. And when you try to address it, he pulls out this line like a shield. But here's what he's really saying. I refuse to grow, and you need to shrink to accommodate my limitations. Jung taught that healthy relationships require both people to be on a journey of individuation, becoming their fullest, most conscious selves. But this phrase reveals someone who has abandoned that journey entirely. He expects you to do all the emotional work, make all the adjustments, while he remains exactly the same. The deeper truth is this: accepting someone doesn't mean tolerating the unacceptable. Real love supports growth, not stagnation. As the Stoics believed, we are meant to evolve, to become better versions of ourselves each day. A man who truly loves you will want to grow alongside you, not drag you down to his level of unconsciousness. So when you hear this phrase, ask yourself, is he really being authentic? Or is this just a sophisticated way to avoid responsibility? Because if his words hide a constant resistance to growth and improvement, you're looking at a pattern that will only get worse with time. And that's where it becomes truly dangerous. After accepting this phrase, you'll find yourself trapped in a relationship where you're always the one adjusting, sacrificing, compromising, while he stays frozen in his comfort zone. You're not here to shrink yourself for someone who refuses to expand. You're here to share your life with someone who wants to grow, just like you do. And if refusing to grow wasn't concerning enough, there's another phrase that reveals an even more troubling pattern. All my exes were crazy. When a man tells you this, it might initially sound like he's just sharing his past. But don't be fooled. Behind those words lies something much more troubling, a complete inability to take responsibility for his role in relationship failures. Carl Jung warned us that what we don't make conscious ends up controlling us from the shadows, and men who constantly blame their exes are usually projecting their own unresolved darkness. This phrase reveals the mind of a chronic victim, someone who needs to be the hero in every story, even when he was the one causing the problems. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. So if a man always interprets his past relationships as him being wronged, never reflecting on his own behavior, chances are he's avoiding his own reflection entirely. Here's the psychological reality. It's almost impossible that every single one of his exes was the problem. What's far more likely is that there's a pattern he refuses to see. Jung said that what we deny in ourselves, we often project onto others. His crazy exes might simply be women who refuse to tolerate his unconscious behavior. This mindset is incredibly dangerous because it shows someone who cannot learn from experience. He'll repeat the same unconscious patterns over and over, blaming each new partner when things inevitably fall apart. And the most chilling part? Sooner or later, you'll become the next crazy ex in his story. Being with someone like this is exhausting. You'll find yourself walking on eggshells, trying to be the exception, the one who doesn't trigger his patterns. But you can't heal someone who doesn't even recognize they're wounded. You can't build a healthy relationship with someone who refuses to examine their own behavior. A conscious woman must ask herself, has he ever taken responsibility for what went wrong in his past relationships? Has he ever shown genuine self-reflection? If the answer is no, you're dealing with someone whose shadow is in complete control, and that shadow will eventually turn its blame toward you. Now, if constant blame wasn't destructive enough, there's a phrase that takes manipulation to an entirely different level, one that weaponizes your deepest feelings against you. If you really loved me, you'd do what I ask. This is emotional blackmail disguised as a love language. At first, it might sound like a heartfelt request, maybe even vulnerability. But look deeper, and you'll see it's actually one of the most manipulative phrases in existence. The Stoics believed that true love cannot be forced or coerced. It must be freely given. But this phrase is designed to eliminate your freedom of choice entirely. Carl Jung spoke about how unhealthy relationships often begin when one person tries to control another through emotional manipulation. And this phrase is a perfect example. When a man says this, he's drawing an invisible line that conditions your love. He's essentially saying, your feelings are only valid if you comply with my demands. This isn't love. It's control wearing a mask of affection. An emotionally mature person makes requests, not demands disguised as love tests. They understand that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, not emotional coercion. The most insidious part is how this phrase grows over time. At first, it's just small things. If you loved me, you'd text me back faster. Then it escalates. If you loved me, you wouldn't spend time with your friends. Eventually, you're making decisions based on fear of disappointing him rather than what feels right for you. Jung taught that real love supports individuation, your journey to become your fullest self. But this phrase does the opposite. It slowly erodes your autonomy until you're no longer sure if you're acting out of love or out of fear of losing his approval. The response to this manipulation is simple but powerful. Stand firm in your truth. Someone who truly loves you doesn't need to guilt you into compliance. They listen to you, respect your boundaries, and value your autonomy even when they disagree with your choices. Because here's what he's really telling you. Your love should eliminate your ability to say no. That's not love, that's possession. And a woman who knows her worth will never trade her freedom for someone's conditional affection. But if you think emotional blackmail is damaging, there's another phrase that's even more devastating, one that attacks the very core of who you are. You're not enough for me. These words can feel like a dagger to the soul. They're designed to make you question everything about yourself, your worth, your very essence. But here's what Carl Jung understood that most people don't. When someone tells you that you're not enough, they're not talking about you at all. They're projecting their own inner emptiness, their unhealed wounds, their desperate need for control. Jung explained that we often criticize in others what we cannot accept in ourselves. A man who consistently makes you feel inadequate is really trying to manage his own feelings of inadequacy by making you smaller. It's psychological projection at its most destructive. This phrase is particularly dangerous because it creates an addiction to his approval. Suddenly, you find yourself trying to become enough, working harder, giving more, changing yourself to fit his ever-changing standards. But here's the cruel truth. The goalpost will always move. Today, you're not enough for one reason. Tomorrow, it will be something else entirely. The Stoics taught that our worth is not determined by others' opinions, but by our character and actions. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not let another man's soul rule over yours." Yet that's exactly what this phrase is designed to do. Make his judgment the measure of your value. Someone who truly sees your worth doesn't need to diminish it to feel powerful. They celebrate your strengths, support your growth, and make you feel valued for who you are, not who they think you should become. When you hear these words, understand that you're not dealing with constructive feedback. You're dealing with someone whose own shadow is so unhealed that he needs to tear you down to feel secure. His insecurity isn't your responsibility to fix, and his emptiness isn't yours to fill. The most empowering response is to remember who you were before you met him. Remember your strength, your accomplishments, your inherent worth that exists independent of anyone's validation. Because the truth is, you are always enough. You just got involved with someone too unconscious to recognize it. And speaking of unconscious behavior, there's one final phrase that might be the most insidious of all, because it sounds like freedom, but feels like a trap. "Do whatever you want," said passive-aggressively. This phrase might seem like he's giving you freedom, but listen to the tone, watch his energy. When these words are spoken with coldness, sarcasm, or passive-aggressive resentment, you're not being given permission. You're being set up for an emotional trap. Carl Jung warned about the shadow's tendency to express itself indirectly through what he called covert aggression. This phrase is a perfect example. He's not actually saying what he means, but he expects you to decode his real message. And if you don't guess correctly, prepare for the silent treatment, guilt trips, or emotional withdrawal. This is manipulation disguised as permission. What he's really saying is, go ahead and make your choice, but I'm going to punish you for it later. It places you in an impossible position where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. The Stoics valued direct, honest communication above all else. Seneca taught that we should speak in ways that don't require interpretation. But this phrase is the opposite. It's deliberately ambiguous, designed to keep you guessing and walking on eggshells. Living with this kind of indirect communication is exhausting. You find yourself constantly trying to read between the lines, anticipating his moods, managing his unspoken emotions. You become responsible for feelings he won't even acknowledge having. Jung believed that healthy relationships require both people to be conscious and direct about their needs and feelings. But someone who speaks in riddles and emotional codes is operating from their unconscious shadow, expecting you to be psychic about their inner world. The most powerful response is to take him literally. If he says, "Do whatever you want," then do exactly that. Don't try to decode hidden meanings or manage his unspoken resentment. This breaks the manipulative cycle and forces him to either communicate directly or sit alone with his passive-aggressive silence. Because a man who truly wants to be with you doesn't speak in codes or create emotional confusion. He shows up with clarity, honesty, and the courage to say what he actually means. As we reach the end of this exploration, remember this: your inner peace is built when your thoughts, words, and actions are in harmony with your deepest values. These 5 phrases we've discussed aren't just relationship red flags. They're warnings that someone's unconscious shadow is about to become your conscious burden. The truth is, you're not here to heal broken men who refuse to heal themselves. You're here to share your journey with someone who walks beside you in consciousness, not someone who drags you into their unconscious patterns. So now I want to ask you, how many of these phrases have you heard in your own relationships? Have you been overlooking these warning signs, or maybe questioning your own reactions to them? Share your experiences in the comments, because recognizing these patterns is the first step toward reclaiming the inner strength and wisdom you've always carried within you. If this video helped you understand the deeper psychology behind these red flags and reminded you that your intuition is more powerful than you realized, then like this video and subscribe for more insights into protecting your emotional well-being through the wisdom of Jung and his philosophy. And remember, protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's self-care at the highest level. Because a woman who knows her worth will always choose growth over stagnation, clarity over confusion, and authentic love over emotional manipulation. Stay true to yourself, even when everything in you wants to stay and fix what cannot be fixed.